I'm Paul Comfort, and this is Transit Unplugged, America's #1 public transportation podcast, where we interview top executives from around the industry and showcase what's happening inside and behind the scenes of their public transportation agency or company. Today, we've got an amazing guest, Martin Ritter, who is the CEO of Stadler U.S. They're a major train manufacturer with their roots in Switzerland, and they built a factory in Utah about a decade ago, and we're going to dive in personally in a week or so. We're scheduled to visit them for our Transit Unplugged TV show. Today, we're going to talk to Martin about how they grew up as an industry, how they're now producing some of the most advanced trains anywhere in America, including our first hydrogen-powered trains, their model called a FLIRT train. Their propulsion system is fantastic. It's not a push-pull traditional train with a locomotive up front. We'll explain it all to you on this episode, plus how they're doing training programs for young people and a little of his background from the Swiss military. I think you'll find this a fascinating interview as we dive behind the scenes of Stadler U.S., one of the most talked about and loved train companies in America. And if you like what you hear today, be sure to like and subscribe us on whatever platform you're on. Whether you're watching us on YouTube or listening on Spotify or Apple, or even our main website, transitunplugged.com, we want you to become a subscriber so that every week you don't miss a single conversation we have with top leaders. We're now in our 8th year, and this is a fantastic way to grow your own education and become a transit evangelist. Now let's dive into this conversation with Martin Ritter, CEO of Stadler U.S. Great to be with Martin Ritter, CEO of Stadler U.S. Martin, thanks for doing the show. I think we've been trying to do this for like 5 years. I'm glad we finally made it happen, man.
Absolutely. And maybe we got even more interesting things to talk about than we would have had 5 years ago, right? So
absolutely, yeah. And what got this going was we are headed out to Salt Lake City, Utah next week, and plan to actually visit your factory and show people what we're going to talk about today. So I'm excited to see your train factory. I've been to a couple of them here on the East Coast, but never seen yours, and I understand it's fantastic. I know friends who have bought trains from you, and they've been out there, so can't wait to see it.
I mean, it's always interesting and certainly meaningful to talk about it, but the reality is once you see where things happen, and especially when you see the people making things happening, that's kind of another level of an impression and experience. So yeah, it's cool to have you guys here next week.
Let's just kick off at the top, right? Tell us about Stadler.
Yeah, well, Stadler is a Swiss headquartered rolling stock company. We've been in the business for over 80 years, basically. We started in the 40s and started with battery shunter trains, and it was the wartime and post-war in Switzerland, and so there's the different needs at that point of time. But really, when our major shareholder Peter Spuler, he took over the company in '89, so roughly 35 years ago, that's when things changed. We became a very innovative company. We were changing the way how rolling stock happened and was built and what rolling stock did in Europe, the experience, low floor equipment, level boarding, multiple units. We started with using aluminum and make those trains lighter and quieter and more efficient. And so really kind of took that innovator role in the 90s and in the 2000s as well, which made the company in '89 from 18 employees to grow to 17,500 nowadays. So we had a very, very successful growth over the last 30 years.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So it's headquartered there, but now you've got this factory that you built like 10 years ago here in the U.S. What brought you to the U.S. market, and how's it going?
Yeah, absolutely. So our North American headquarters is in Salt Lake City. And we were doing business in the US kind of on and off. We call it cherry picking between 2002 and 2016. And we delivered a few GTWs like New Jersey and in Austin and EBART and ECTA. And those were built in Switzerland. They were not federally funded, so there was no Buy America Act applicable. And in 2015, we decided to go after the Trinity Metro project, TrexRail, and that was requiring Buy America. So for us, it was clear that we have to set up a final assembly line here in the United States. And then we did a little site selection and landed in Salt Lake City.
What made you all choose Salt Lake City as a location to build trains?
Well, the easy answer is because we have such good snow here in Salt Lake.
That's true. You can go skiing, right? Yeah.
We love to ski, but just by skiing, you don't build trains, right? So there must be more to it. It all started with relationships. There were people from Utah visiting Switzerland, and they visited with our executive team. And there was a promise made, if Stadler is ever going to the United States, we will also visit Utah. And when it was time when I did the site selection, we considered a lot of the states southeast, which is kind of the natural landing for European companies usually. 6 hours time difference and relatively close still. But because we made the promise we're going to consider Utah, I did go to Salt Lake City and looked at it, and it ended up feeling fairly well. Like I would say, from a tax incentive perspective, from a workforce development perspective, I mean, you can get there in most other states as well. But it felt good. There was no red flags. And then because we had only a relatively small project with $100 million. And once you build your own facility, you're kind of out of the window. It's like $50+ million of investments, right? So we were looking for a leased option. And that's not very easy to find a facility that has rail access,
Yeah.
cranes, that has pits, etc. So really, we're fortunate enough that we could lease a part of an old Union Pacific workshop here in Salt Lake. And that kind of sealed the deal, was really the infrastructure, the possibility to rent or to lease, short-term lease for us to deliver that project. And we always knew we kind of wanted to win Caltrain. And we knew once we win Caltrain, which was a large contract for us, starting with $551 million, we knew we're gonna invest in the US and we're gonna settle. And at that point, we trained already like 80+ people, and we felt like, it's not a bad place. So far, we did good experience in Salt Lake, and we wanted to keep the workforce. And so we eventually settled here in Salt Lake, and we're not regretting it a single day.
So you've been there 10 years, and I go to a lot of transit conferences, and you all have your trains there sometimes, and I'm able to see things. And I'm not just saying this because I'm interviewing you. People that know me know I'm try to have integrity in these things. Everyone I know that has bought a Stadler train loves it. I mean, loves it. Congratulations on that. That's not always the case. I'm sure it has something to do with meticulous Swiss engineering and all that, but like a Swiss clock and all that jazz. But I mean, you're American now. You're an American division. Tell us how you make it happen, man.
Thank you. I mean, that's obviously best news as a company, is that your customer want to keep buying your trains and they're happy with it, right? So I think there's a few things that made us so far successful. We started with the FLIRT. The FLIRT is a very established platform in Europe, and we domesticated it for the US purposes. So we have a very mature baseline product. I'd say with the KISS, that was a little bit, our bi-level, that was a little bit a tougher one because there was a lot of customization going on with that KISS. So you might have a little bit of more child disease issues in the beginning of a project, right? Which is certainly not the case with the FLIRT. And then even a bigger one we took with the Metro, because the MARTA project, that train is really one of its kind. And unfortunately, in the Metro business, it's almost, there are no such things like you build a Metro and then you sell it to XY customers. It's like every Metro system is a new product, right? And now we entered into the market with the LRV segment with the CityLink, which is as well a very state-of-the-art but already established platform that we domesticate. So I feel like that approach is well balanced between complete new development of products and adjusting existing, still state-of-the-art products and bring them to the US market. I think the second part is we try to grow sustainably. Like, we have a growth gene in us. We love to grow, we love to excel, but we also try to do it very carefully. And sometimes, I guess we were lucky that we also lost one or two projects, which were maybe too big at that point of time for us. I think in the meantime, we have a very mature organization that can handle big projects. But in 2019-20, we went after big projects and we did lose those. If you look at our growth rate, we had a very exponential growth rate first in the first 4 years. Then we kind of hit a plateau, kind of a break, which helped us to kind of invest in our quality and in our processes and just to become better. And then also, whenever we had a slow time in terms of additional projects, we tried to get additional processes here. Like we added painting in 2019, we added welding 24, 25. We're going to add CNC. And so we're trying to also carefully add more at depth to our production scope that we can do here in Salt Lake. And I think we did that very mindful too. Last but not least, we're very focused on the customer. I mean, at the end of the day, your project team, the people in touch with the customers make a big difference of the experience. I mean, one part is the train. The other part is, was it actually productive, fun, and respectful how we worked together with someone? And that's a very key element to me personally, that our team is really handling our customer with a lot of care. And you will see this next week. I mean, the passion that you can feel that our people have for what we're doing every day, that's what makes a big difference too.
That's good. Just talk a little bit more about your factory there. Give me some stats on it, how many employees, how big it is, anything else you want to tell us about what you're doing there in Utah.
Yeah, absolutely. So our facility, we started in 2019. We opened the first one with just over 230,000 square feet. We're going to hit almost 600,000 square feet in February this year to be finished. And we're having obviously warehousing. We do some pre-assembly like panels. We build the panels here inside in-house. All the electrical pre-work is manufactured here in Salt Lake City. We do have the final assembly. We have a truck assembly so that the trucks are Buy America compliant as well. And obviously, we have our commissioning and test center, including 2/3 of a mile of a test track that has DC, AC, and obviously non-powered. Diesel is always easy, or all the propulsion systems. And then we added the aluminum welding just recently. So we welded our first car shell here in the United States. I think that's very unique as well. I don't think any of our competition is welding aluminum in the United States. They're more focusing on the stainless steel. And so that's pretty exciting. That takes a lot of knowledge. We send people to Europe to be trained. We have a team from Europe here to work with our local workforce to build those trains right now. And then obviously we do sandblast and the paint job. So like literally from welding the cars through final assembly is happening, and testing is happening here in Salt Lake. We hit the 700. We're just over 700 employees currently. We added a few over the last couple of years, and we're expecting to go up to about 850 by end of next year.
And how do you find, and train, or I guess how do you train and find skilled employees? I understand you have a youth apprenticeship program. Tell us some about that.
Yeah, that's kind of a big hobby of myself. I went through a youth apprenticeship program when I was 16 in Switzerland. Went to college on a secondary path, how we call that in Switzerland. And so I'm very grateful for my experience when I was 16 through 20 to go through a youth apprenticeship program. I think it defined me to a large extent, or helped me to define myself. And that's what we try to offer here as well. On one hand, we were looking for talents. We were looking for high quality workforce. So training and education is a big deal regardless. I think it's more sustainable when it's done through a youth apprenticeship program. You're basically hiring those kids when they're still at high school. That gives you a high level of loyalty. We have a success rate of hiring those graduates. We only lost one person in the last 7 years, didn't take a job with us after they graduated. So that's really successful. Usually they stay for years afterwards. Some are still here from the first cohort that we started in 19. And some of them, after a couple of years working on the floor, or they're seeking another challenge and another passion. I mean, certainly understandable. And some of them, they will come back. I mean, it's kind of an ecosystem, right? That's what we're working on as well. It's a 3-year program. They graduate with an associate degree. They're usually really some of our best educated and trained employees. They're taking leadership roles relatively early already sometimes. And we're trying to grow the system beyond Stadler. We're trying to get white collar jobs in as well. We're trying to, obviously, other blue collar. We're adding the aluminum welding track. other construction and manufacturing tracks to be added. And 50% of the young kids post high school will not go to college.
Right.
And I feel like it makes sense to give those kids an opportunity to get a debt-free education as well, and to start a career. And so it's a little bit of my passion beyond
Yeah.
Stadler. And so it's a really good thing for the society. It's a good thing for Stadler. It changed as well, like the culture on the shop floor of training and educating is daily present, and that kind of helps as well.
I love that, Martin. That's pretty cool, man. And it's a great career, right? Once they get into it, they got a solid career.
Well, you would be surprised if you ever go to Switzerland and you have the opportunity to visit, it doesn't even have to be manufacturing, just the local businesses in Switzerland. You would be surprised. I would assume there's more than 80% of Swiss companies' management are all graduating through youth apprenticeship programs. So it's not only that we're creating the future workforce, through that program, we are creating essentially the future management of our company as well. And they're very knowledgeable because they did assemble, they eventually went through maybe a college, secondary degree, etc. And they usually are, I mean, if you look at an engineering situation in Switzerland, is more than half of the engineers, they started as an apprentice. So they really know what they're engineering, what it looks like to build a train as well. And the other half are full-time engineers, so to speak. They went through a college and a master's degree, etc. And so you need that mix between the theoretical part, but also those people who have actually a practical background. And I think that makes our product better.
Thanks for listening to the Transit Unplugged podcast. We are so glad you're here. If you're enjoying this show, we know you'll love our other transit industry programs. On Transit Unplugged TV, Paul Comfort explores the food, culture, and transit systems around the globe. You get to see everything. You'll love this show. And every week, we also offer up the Transit Unplugged News Minute, where you can get the latest industry headlines in less than 60 seconds. You can find out more at transitunplugged.com. Now back to Paul Comfort for this edition of the award-winning Transit Unplugged podcast.
Well, let's talk about the product some. What kind of trains do you build? And then we'll get into propulsion.
Yes, so it sounds very cheap from a sales perspective, but we're almost building everything. It's very unique for the US market. We're building not very high speed. We're going up to 160 miles in the portfolio of Stadler, 165 miles per hour. And then we're very strong. We had our roots in the commuter rail industry and intercity industry. So that's kind of where the FLIRT and the KISS platform, our single level and bi-level platforms, are driving. And then we're doing metro, like for Atlanta, where we did Berlin, we have some major cities.
Like subway system cars,
yes.
Or they? Oh, okay.
Yes, subways.
Yeah.
So we have some major cities around the globe where we built the subway cars. And then in the urban situation environment, we do build light rail, and we build also streetcars, trolleys. For the US segment, yeah, pretty much for the US segment, we're sticking to the light rail mostly.
Okay.
So we haven't really entered into the streetcar segment yet. And we're also building globally. We're quite strong in locomotives. We have some of the strongest locomotives in the market, especially the dual mode, different propulsion system on the locomotives as well. And so the locomotive segment is also something that we haven't offered in the US yet.
So if somebody wanted to buy a Stadler train, you're just passenger rail, right? You don't do freight?
Correct.
Yeah. So they would buy the cars, but they would get the locomotive from your Swiss operations or somewhere else. Is that how it would work?
No.
Oh.
So currently in the United States, we don't do push-pull equipment.
Oh.
And that's maybe worthwhile to mention.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Because we're basically a multiple unit builder. We believe in distributed propulsion systems. So our trains, they don't come with a locomotive and cars. They're coming as an integrated system. And basically you're bi-directional, you can run in both directions. The propulsion system and the propelled unit is part of the passenger unit as well.
Oh,
and so that's a different DNA, right? So in the beginning, 10 years ago, when we tried to market that, intensively, there was a lot of pushback. But to your earlier point, I think everyone who runs our multiple unit, they love it. And I think the market share becomes a little bit more interesting. It's still not a massive market share, but certainly the multiple units they do have a reasonable spot in the US market. Also because we're FRA compliant, although we are relatively light designed. So we're really pushed hard on introducing a state-of-the-art crash energy management system through the FRA rules. And first that went through a waiver. And since 2019, that's fully compliant with the AVT technology, with the FRA, with the CFR. So it makes it really easy for our customers as well to get all our trains in revenue service.
Is each car got power?
Depends a little bit. So usually not. Usually it's a distributed approach. For example, Caltrain, out of 7 cars, 5 are propelled, 2 are non-propelled.
Okay.
If you look at a San Bernardino car, that's a 3-car unit. There are 2 propelled, 1 is not. Dart has 2 propelled out of 5. And so it depends a little bit what the propulsion system is and what the requirements are on the schedule and propulsion.
Yeah. So, and talk to us about that, because I wanted to get to the FLIRT car and explain that. So you've got electric, and then you've got, are you doing diesel, or is it just zero emission kind of stuff? Or explain all that, your propulsion systems.
Absolutely. So I think the smart move we did 10 years ago when we sold our first diesel multiple unit was our FLIRT, the base technology is an EMU. It's an electrical multiple unit from Europe where you have catenary. Now, there's not a whole lot of catenary here. And we did add this power pack in the middle of the train.
Yeah.
And the first version had diesel engines in there.
Okay.
And all they did was basically generating the electricity to then propel the train. So it was still an electric train, but the electricity was generated through diesel engines. And that was kind of the DNA of the train was made so that we could basically argue it doesn't matter what is going to generate the electricity, that the rest of the train remains the same. And in the meantime, we did actually make that move, like that power pack for Metra holds batteries, and the train will be powered by the batteries. Same motors at the end of the train, but the source of electricity is no longer a diesel engine, it's now a battery. And then on the other hand, in California, with SBCTA and also the state of California, we're building those hydrogen fuel cell trains, whereas the electricity is actually going to be generated through the fuel cells. And then it's a blend between batteries of the fuel cells to excel or for the traction system of the train.
Is that the FLIRT system? The FLIRT hydrogen system?
Yes,
Okay.
That's the FLIRT hydrogen.
And
then
people loving that?
Well, I think, look, there's a lot of philosophy about what's the right approach in terms of fuel.
Yeah.
Is it diesel? Is it hydrogen? Is it battery? Is it a mix out of it? And I think it's maybe a little bit of everything because it's very specifically tailored to the need. There's regions where a diesel multiple unit is totally fine. And honestly, our diesel electric FLIRT is still, is a phenomenal product if you consider how low the emissions are. We're expecting, compared to push-pull operations, that depends a little bit. We did some measurements, but it's somewhat between 15 and 30% of the fuel consumption compared to a push-pull locomotive. And so that's still great. Like, even if it's not entirely emission-free, you reduced your emissions dramatically going with such a light, efficient design like the FLIRT. And then when you're focusing more on longer distance, you need a little bit more flexibility. Then hydrogen, and you really care about zero emission effect on the train, then I think hydrogen could make a lot of sense because it's still kind of the same mindset. I'm fueling it once a day like I did before with diesel. I have a long range, and we did over 1,700 miles with the SBCTA FLIRT on the hydrogen on one tank. And so there's a lot of range there. And then you got the battery one is if you have a fixed line, maybe even a partial electrified system, right? You don't have the funds to further electrify and you want to go beyond your main line. a battery train could make a lot of sense. If you have a vision of eventually electrifying your line, and you want to still use kind of the partial electrification while you build your electrification. I mean, Caltrain took over 10 years to build out the electrification. That could maybe with an BEMU, with a battery electric multiple unit, you could maybe run underneath catenary partially already and use the batteries to where you're still building up your overhead catenary. So the battery train, and once that's set up with the charging, partial electrification or fast charging, you're basically running this train all day and you don't care about fueling or charging or whatever, right? It's not like the bus segment, the bus industry, whereas you're running your bus and you have to go back to the depot to charge it and you're depending on that. On the battery electric rail line, you're designing your charging infrastructure so you don't have any headaches about having full batteries. The more you run, the more your batteries are full, especially with partial electrified systems. So depends on the infrastructure, the vision, the political climate in your city, or even like with the battery, what we're trying, like if you combine batteries, for example, with diesel, there's an opportunity to run maybe quiet zones. Like when you go through neighborhoods that are very sensitive to emissions, to vibrations, to the noise, then run on the battery for those couple of miles, and then you can run on your diesel engines once you're beyond the high density of the high density neighborhood, right? So there's a lot of possibilities. It doesn't always have to be 100% green, so to speak. I think there's a lot of options, and the way how we designed the FLIRT, we have all those possibilities, which is actually really great.
Yeah, I remember David from Keolis was telling me about that how that would be so cool. You know, when you get close to the city, you go just to battery. So pretty interesting. So now you guys just became your own standalone division, right? Like this year. Tell us what that means.
Well, at the end of the day, it shouldn't mean too much in terms of the daily business. It does mean that we, as the North American market, we do have a seat at the table on the group executive board, which certainly gives the US market more importance on the group level, on one hand. On the other hand, it also means it's a next step in the maturity level of our organization here. Being it's our own division also means we are more independent in terms of our own resources and of our own knowledge that we have here in Salt Lake. We always had that as a vision, and we had a 10 years plan for it. So it kind of worked out fairly well also on the schedule. Although I have to say, I mean, COVID didn't help, right? COVID kind of pushed back a little bit on us, but all in all, it's a commitment of Stadler to the North American market. It means I'm traveling a lot more often to Switzerland personally, because obviously we're having certain commitments that we're doing for the group as well. I mean, we're part of the group executive management, and so that comes also with duties, obviously, and so. But it has been good for our organization, that step.
That's great, man. And last kind of business question is, what's the next big milestone that you're chasing here in North America for your division?
I mean, there's so many milestones.
I mean, you're growing, right? The facility itself is growing, right?
Yeah. We have just over 110 engineers right now, which are doing great. And I think that further invest in our local technical knowledge is going to be a big deal for us. Concluding our welding department, we also do this in steps. We do the final welding currently for the first couple of our projects. Next spring, we're adding the roof and the floor. That's going to be a pretty automized process from a welding. We have robotics there. And then the year after, we're going with the CNC process into it. So we're also there.
What's CNC?
That's the milling, machining.
Yeah.
So we're doing machining in a couple of years as well. And then once we do the machining, we're really self-sufficient in terms of building our car shells as well. So that's going to be a big milestone to kind of conclude. It's like, okay, we're doing everything basically for our aluminum car shells in the United States. And then we have the Olympics coming up in Salt Lake. We're building trains for Salt Lake for those Olympics. So I know it's 8 years, almost 9 years ahead of us, but that's going to be a big milestone to see our trains running through Olympic City. So
oh yeah, man,
exciting.
That's pretty awesome, dude. Well, this is great. I wanted to ask you like a personal question too. You've got an amazing background that I'm sure played into your leadership of leading, coming to a new country and starting, a new factory and all that. And in the military there in Switzerland, you were the captain and commanding officer of the first company of the 20th Grenadier Battalion. I mean, dude, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, something I don't want to miss, that's for sure. Yeah. I mean, you're hitting on, it certainly defined me. I mentioned earlier the apprenticeship program did define me because that was happening between 16 and 20. When I was 20, I joined the military and I got the opportunity to graduate as an officer, as a lieutenant at an age of 23 and take on some responsibility, and then eventually taking over the command of the first company. And everything in very young age, right? You're in your 20s and you're responsible for 250 people. And it's like, I think that's a great opportunity we have in Switzerland. We're not very well known for our military, but it's a
the Swiss guards at the Vatican, we know about them.
That is true. That is true. But it's a malicious system, right? But it gives you opportunities to basically have leadership experience at a very young age. And it also, especially for the special forces, I mean, there's a lot of, that was a challenging time as well. I mean, it's one of those times that I'm very grateful that I did it, but I wouldn't want to do it again because it was hard, right? But it also formed a lot out of us. And so maybe that helped to a certain extent as well to go to a foreign country. I mean, when I got the task to establish the U.S., I have never been to the United States before that day. Yeah. I mean, I was sitting in the office in Busan in Switzerland, and Peter Spuler told me like, well, you're doing the U.S. market. I'm like, well, I guess I get a visa and I get my first trip to the United States, right? And my English was inexistent at that point of time too. I was fluently speaking French and German and Swiss, but not English. And so I think to a certain extent, yes, the military experience helped me to, I wouldn't say to be prepared, but maybe to be naive enough to just take it and run with it. And usually, if you look at it, I mean, there's challenges. There's many challenges. That's part of our job. And there's some big challenges. And I know it's an old picture, but it's like a big elephant. You take it step by step, piece by piece. Don't take more than you can digest at one bite, right? So I think that worked. And I was really lucky with the team. I mean, it's, when you look over the last 10 years, we really started with one person, right, 10 years ago. And the team we established, the people we came across over the last 10 years, that's the most valuable part of watching back, is really all those people making Stadler as great as Stadler is. And we will keep making it even greater, hopefully.
Yeah. I'm sure you will, man. Great 10-year background now, and I can't wait to come out there and we can see it and show people. This is going to be on our the television show for people who are interested. Will be airing in our February episode of 2026. So we'll have a couple months from the time this airs till that goes on. But thanks again, Martin, for spending some time with us today. It's been a long time coming. But like you said, you've got a lot to talk about and a great world-class rail manufacturing facility with a great story, and you're right at the center of it. Great to meet you, my friend.
Thank you so much, Paul. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Transit Unplugged, the world's #1 transit executive podcast. I'm Julie Gates, executive producer of the podcast. Many thanks to the team that makes this show happen. Host and producer Paul Comfort, producer Chris O'Keefe, editor Patrick Emile, associate producer Cindy Raskin, and consultants Dan Meisner and Jonas Woost at Bumper. Transit Unplugged is being brought to you by Modaxo, passionate about moving the world's people. If you would enjoy behind-the-scenes insights and updates from the show, sign up for our weekly newsletter, which has links to can't-miss conversations with the biggest names in mobility. Head to transitunplugged.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Transit Unplugged.